Hello guys, what's up? So at risk of being misunderstood, I'm going to talk about this little controversial topic, which is strength training versus hypertrophy training. So, should you gain strength as a natural lifter for hypertrophy? So let's just repeat that once again. So, should you train for strength specifically to specifically gain muscle? So before we answer that, let's just put some things into context here, because there is a dogma on the internet that if you are natural, that you should absolutely have, so that you have to gain strength. So if your one rep max on bench is not going up, you're not gaining any muscle or something like that, which of course it's not true. And we're just gonna explore this idea a little bit further. We can attack this idea from multiple angles, and I don't want to talk too much about this because I am gonna write an article about this, and in the article I'm gonna cover also how programming is different, how when you are your training blocks are pretty much different when you are training for strength or training for hypertrophy. Of course it's different. There are it's not like completely different goals, but they are different goals. Training for, let me once again say this, specifically for one rep max. And of course, people don't even realize that when we are talking about strength, people unconsciously automatically assume that we are talking about squat, bench, deadlift. Maybe some people are also thinking about overhead press, or maybe even squat, snatch and clean and jerk, or maybe front squat or some odd lift like that. But yeah, so strength is not, let me repeat this, strength, it's not only measured in squat, bench and deadlift. So if you don't believe that, just look at strongmen. Strongmen are not specifically training for squat and bench. Their deadlift is also a little bit different than raw powerlifting deadlift, because they are using straps. They have different bars which help you lift more weight. It's not the same lifting on an elephant bar or on a stiff bar. And you can use straps, you can use suit, so it's pretty much different. And for example, strongmen measure strength in reps. So they measure strength in reps. For example, when they are carrying shit, they also measure strength in time. So they are basically trying to move an object for as little time as possible. So, that's just so you can understand that you can measure strength in different ways, not just by one rep max. But we are going to stick to strength here only in terms of reps and sets. So, because this is important for us when we talk about hypertrophy. So, when you are trying to chase one rep max, your whole training blocks are going to be different than when you are trying to gain hypertrophy. Also, so let's just cover a little bit of programming. So I'm just gonna tiptoe this. I'm just gonna not talk too much about programming because I don't want this video to last for 2 or 3 hours. But for example, when you are training specifically for one rep max, so if you are a powerlifter, let's just take the context of powerlifter because it's the most simplistic one. Let's not overcomplicate things. So if you are a powerlifter, we also have to take in the context here, put in the context what level powerlifter. So let's just take an intermediate powerlifter, like pretty common, he is pretty balanced powerlifter. He doesn't have glaring issues like he's lagging on bench or lagging on I don't know. So for example, you are going to do, for example, bench, you're gonna train 3 times per week, squat 2 times per week, deadlift 1 to 2 times per week, depending on what weight class or your strength level is. But for example, you are going to do bench. First block of your training is gonna last for 2 months, which is gonna be hypertrophy. second block of your training is gonna last for 2 months, which is gonna be strength, and you have a peaking block of 1 month. So in the first block, you're gonna focus more on hypertrophy. You're gonna do reps from 5 to 10, 8. It depends on the athlete, on what he or she is willing to do. But we're just gonna say you're gonna do for squat weekly 10 sets of 5 to 8 reps. You're gonna do same thing for like deadlift, maybe something similar for bench, but the frequency is gonna vary. So in the last month, so peaking month, you're gonna drop all of this down to like maybe 1 to 5 repetitions. You're gonna do most of your volume below 3 reps, and you're gonna do some volume around 5 reps, because you also want to keep those hypertrophy adaptations also, because you don't want to lose too much muscle, because basically the longer the peak it is, the more muscle you are probably gonna lose. Not that much, but you are, because in the peaking stages and in the last in the second half of strength training, is probably beneficial for you to not do too much accessory work. And in general, in the strength block, I don't think there is any reason to train specifically your biceps and triceps. I don't know, you're not gonna do pretty much any isolation work. You're just gonna do a few of accessories. So that's not really good for hypertrophy when you're, because that's powerlifting, that's not hypertrophy training. So as we said, first 2 months is gonna be hypertrophy. You're gonna focus more on higher reps, meaning from 5 to 10, let's say. In the strength block, you're gonna focus more on the reps from 3 to 6, something around there. And in the last month, you're gonna focus more on like from 1 to 5 reps, and the majority of your volume is gonna be from 1 to 3 reps. And this also varies from lift to lift. It also varies from person to person. This is just a regular template, 2 months this, 2 months this. It doesn't really matter. This is just a random example. All of this can be adjusted. This is just like, just a regular example. And so especially when you are in peaking month or 2 months, depending on the level of the athlete, some athletes are gonna have to have a longer peaking, so maybe even month and a half to 2 months. But you have to drop pretty much almost all accessories, especially in the last 2 weeks. You're gonna pretty much focus all your volume on the specifically squat, bench, deadlift, because specificity is king, especially in powerlifting. So let's just compare this to hypertrophy training. In hypertrophy training, you don't have any peaking in terms of programming. You are pretty much trying to do your goal. When your goal is hypertrophy, pretty much your goal is to do as much volume as possible with exercises that target the best your muscles, not lifts. So if dumbbell bench press works your chest more for you, for specifically you as an individual, so if you find it that you have more sore, that your chests are more sore when you are training dumbbells, you feel them more, you feel the contraction in your chest when you're benching with dumbbells. Just an example. You can take that example with machines or some other bar or incline bench, but let's just stick this to the dumbbell bench. So if you feel your chest more with dumbbells, it's probably better if your goal is hypertrophy to stick to dumbbells. And of course your goal is not to get as strong as possible I mean, we are also going to talk about specific context in which way you have to get stronger. So it's different to get stronger for bodybuilding or for mass training and to get stronger for powerlifting. It's pretty different, but just bear with me here, please. Sorry about that. And so, when we are talking about hypertrophy, you have to also choose exercises that are targeting your muscles. It's not like the bench is the best chest builder. Of course, if you are a beginner, you have never explored bench, you have never changed your technique, you pretty much don't know anything about bench or about squat or about deadlift. And we're also going to talk about deadlift later, which probably some of you are already getting angry about. But, you know, if some lifts target your muscles more than squat, bench, deadlift, you have to do them. It's in your interest if your goal is hypertrophy. So if you're doing bench press and you're doing strictly powerlifting bench press, because you can have more, you can bench in more ways. There isn't just one way to bench. But if you're a powerlifter, you're not gonna bench the same as a bodybuilder. So this is like pretty strange idea for somebody, but all of the bodybuilders know that, and I don't know, but it's in your interest to train your chest through the largest range of motion. So if your goal is hypertrophy, I'm saying probably, this is not written in stone, probably incline bench is going to be better for you. Probably. I'm saying again, probably. This is not a written in stone rule for everybody, but incline bench works your chest through more range of motion than regular bench for most people. Me personally, I feel my chest really working on flat bench also, and with dumbbells also. Dumbbells probably the most, and I feel my chest really work on dips also. That doesn't have to be necessarily you, but there is a difference from powerlifting and for strength training than for muscle building. So if you want to build your muscle, you want to do as much volume as possible from which you personally as an individual can recover from. That depends from person to person. So some of you will need to do like 10 sets of bench or 10 sets of chest work in general per week, and some of you are probably going to have to do more, and I don't think there is anybody who will have to do less than 10 sets. Maybe some of you, but probably around 10 sets is a pretty good number, which is also scientifically proven. 10 to 20 sets is probably the best for most people. And so we touched a little bit about programming. We now are talking a little bit about exercise selection. So exercise selection really depends on your goals. So if you are a powerlifter, you have to squat. But if you're not a powerlifter, I'm sorry, but you don't have to squat. Where is it written that you have to squat? Nowhere. So you don't have to squat, because you can build massive legs with machines, with front squats, with safety bar squats, probably better than on Smith machine squats. I know most of you hate the Smith machine, and I hate it pretty much, mostly in the past. I especially hated it in the past, but now I just learned to accept it. It's a pretty good tool, but exercise selection should be considered when you are training for hypertrophy. When you're training for powerlifting, you're pretty much limited. You have to squat, bench, deadlift. That's literally your competition. But when you're training for hypertrophy, you have to do whatever the fuck you want. And for hypertrophy, also, it's probably in your interest that you do high bar squat and deep squats. I mean, as deep as your body is allowing you to. So if you're going to dip and your back hurts when you're going to dip, don't do it. And also, it's not in your interest to do, since we are talking about exercise selection now, it's not really in your interest to do deadlifts if you want to gain mass. I mean, this topic, especially this one, is like super controversial for most of people online. I mean, I like deadlifts. I'm pretty strong in deadlifts. I deadlifted 550 for 6 reps or 250 kilos for 6 reps. I was probably close to 300 kilo deadlift, conventional. And deadlift is my strongest lift by far from everything else. And in my opinion, you don't have to deadlift. I mean, deadlift works pretty much all your body, and it's a really good like general exercise, and it's a really fun exercise. You know, it's fun to do deadlifts. But maybe if you want to, like I'm saying, if you want to maximize your hypertrophy, I'm not saying that you're not gonna gain any muscle by doing strength training. What I am saying is that if you want to really maximize hypertrophy, maybe, and I'm just saying maybe, this is not written in stone, this is not a rule, this is not anything. And also, on top of that, this is also just my opinion. This doesn't necessarily have to be a rule, you know, as I said before. You don't have to do deadlifts. Probably Romanian deadlifts are working your hamstrings more directly than the deadlift, because in the deadlift you are using also more of your upper back, probably because you're holding more weight. You're using more your quads on the regular deadlift. And you know, regular deadlift, because you are handling more weights, and because of the nature of the lift, which I'm not going to get into this because I am limited in English language to even explain this, but because of a few reasons, it's not in your interest even to do deadlifts when you want to, as I'm trying to say, maximize your hypertrophy. Deadlifts are really cool lift. As I said before, I know that deadlifts for some of you is practically a religion, but also one of the biggest reasons why deadlift is probably not a good idea for hypertrophy, because it's not really directly working any muscle group, maybe glutes probably, but it's working whole of your body like statically, you know. It's like isometric contraction for your lumbar, for your lats, maybe really limited range of motion for your lats, and it's really taxing on your body. So you're basically spending your recovery on deadlifts, which can be used for muscle building. That's literally what is going on when you're doing deadlifts for bodybuilding. Also, now that we covered that, I mean, a lot of you are gonna be mad at me because I said that, but we are going to just talk a little bit more about in how does it even relate strength training to hypertrophy. So, probably the best way for you to gain muscle is actually to gain strength, but to gain strength in a specific manner, so in a specific way. And that way is to find exercises that targets your muscles the best. So for your specific body type, so everybody has different body, and if you feel your muscles the best in one exercise in particular for your chest, for example incline bench, you should get stronger in incline bench, but in a specific way. You want to do the most volume possible in which you are able to recover. So there is a difference. It's not like when I say you want to do as much volume as possible, that doesn't mean that you have to do like 50 sets of incline bench and you're gonna grow. No, that means that if you are doing 10 sets of incline bench per week, for example, and you are recovering well, nothing is hurting, you are progressing in weight little by little, and you know, you're feeling good, maybe it's in your interest to increase volume, but not to jump from 10 sets to 20 sets. You can increase your volume by 10%, so by 1 set per week, or maybe maximum of 20%, so 2 sets per week if you have been doing 10 sets, 2 sets per week is 20% increase, and 20% increase is a lot. So if you are, for example, doing 10 sets of 8 to 12 reps, so in one day you're doing, let's just arbitrary example, in one day you're doing 5 sets of 8 reps, another day you're doing 5 sets of 12 to 15 reps, and you want to get stronger in those rep ranges to increase hypertrophy. It's not really clear, and it's probably not true, that if you can bench for more reps, something that you're gonna automatically be bigger. So the correlation is not 1-to-1. It's not like if you're getting stronger, you're gonna get bigger. But it's probably, when you're natural, your best bet to like increase your strength in a little bit higher rep ranges. So that way you're trying to like at least cover one factor of hypertrophy training. So if you want to gain size, it's in your interest to do more volume. All of the research pretty much is indicating that you have to do more volume is better than low volume. And yeah, so I'm just gonna stop here because it's already been 20 minutes, but I am going to cover this a little bit more in depth in my article, and I hope that this at least helped some of you a little bit, because I don't want these videos to be too long. I am making currently the video about the bench press, and I'm really excited about that video because I really want to cover the bench press, the squat, the deadlift, and the overhead press really thoroughly completely. I want to cover them really good, and probably I'm gonna make more videos about those main lifts, and I'm also going to do videos also about some exercises for your shoulders, for your arms, and for your quads and everything. Let's just stop the ramble. So thank you guys for listening. See you guys in the next video, and I am going to update my website soon, so you should check my website also. Like if you didn't, subscribe if you didn't, and bye bye.